Sean Ryan on the show a couple months ago. He was amazing, former Navy SEAL. And he tweeted out this picture of himself with the combat paint on his face. And the caption is, "This is a photo of me not being Tim Walz. Some of us answered the call, and some of us, Tim Walz, cowered in the rear." Then there's Sean Parnell, who had run for Senate in Pennsylvania a couple years ago. Same picture of himself with his guns. "This is a photo of me not."
It began like any ordinary political segment, steady and predictable, until something shifted. Somewhere between certainty and hesitation, the tone changed. A single stretch of dialogue drifted from composed into unmistakably uncomfortable, sentences flowing quickly while the logic underneath began to thin out. Viewers leaned closer, sensing something unfolding in real time. There was no yelling, no dramatic gestures, just a measured statement that landed with unexpected force and left people staring at their screens. How did it pivot so quickly? And why are those same few seconds being replayed everywhere? Let's break it down.
Trump and J.D. Vance have a manual too. It's called Project 2025, and it's a way to stick it to the middle class while giving tax cuts to the wealthiest. Look, they didn't give me a manual for this if you didn't plan on using it to fix your truck. They didn't create that Project 2025 just to have it set around as a doorstop.
According to the LA Times, this kind of car sells for anywhere between $39,000 to $59,000. So he's just a regular working class guy with a $60,000 automobile. He's just like you.
The internet has a way of reminding public figures that confidence alone isn't a substitute for clarity. Tim Walz learned that lesson publicly when Megyn Kelly challenged the polished image he had carefully maintained, turning it into a clip that quickly gained traction online. What was meant to reinforce his credibility instead became a moment viewers kept revisiting.
Simple on this. You commit fraud in Minnesota, you're going to prison. I don't care what color you are, what religion you are. Anybody who wants to help us in that, we welcome that. But setting on the sidelines and throwing out accusations, and let's be very clear, demonizing an entire population and lying to people about the safety and security of this state is beneath that.
And meanwhile, state Senate Republicans say the fraud in Minnesota.
What made the exchange compelling wasn't raised voices or visible frustration, but preparation. One participant arrived with structure and focus, while the other appeared to rely heavily on delivery and tone. It felt like watching someone assume momentum would carry the conversation, only to realize momentum requires more than optimism.
What is the truth about Minnesota governor and now Democratic vice presidential pick Tim Walz and his military service record? Questions have been swirling, including allegations that Mr. Walz abandoned his fellow troops in their greatest time of need. Even claims of stolen valor. Yesterday on this program, I spoke with a Minnesota National Guard veteran who has been sounding the alarm on this story for years.
Tim Walz has long demonstrated a talent for sounding reassuring without locking himself into specifics. That approach can work well in friendly environments where general agreement replaces detailed questioning. In those spaces, broad language often passes without resistance.
Me not being Tim Walz. These guys get it, and they are not going to be spun by Morning Joe saying, "Oh, there's nothing to this. This is like." You tell it to these brave guys who put on their uniforms, grabbed their guns, and actually risked their lives and saw their buddies die in the theater that he quit on as his unit went.
This time, however, the discussion entered Megyn Kelly's arena, where broad statements tend to be examined closely. What followed wasn't explosive. It unfolded gradually, almost methodically, like watching someone edge closer to a difficult corner without noticing the walls closing in. Megyn Kelly didn't need to raise her voice or dramatize the exchange because the content spoke loudly enough. Walz spoke with the ease of someone accustomed to positive reception, but that ease began to fade once straightforward follow-ups were introduced. That combination can be risky when a message depends on remaining untested. Each argument sounded firm at first until it had to stand independently. And when it did, it began to wobble, like a chair that looked sturdy until real weight was applied.
Allegations. For what it's worth, the Harris-Walz campaign and the complicit media would have you believe this entire controversy is just a bunch of nonsense. But today we're going to bring you the receipts. Here's what we know. Days after the September 11th, 2001 attack on our nation, Mr. Walz re-enlisted in the National Guard for a 6-year commitment. He would later claim it was only 4. Alpha News, they're in Minnesota, they've obtained the paperwork. It was 6. So I don't know why he's misleading about that, but he signed up to stay in until 2007.
The tone shifted toward unintended humor as it became clear that Walz leaned heavily on repetition rather than detailed explanation. Repeating a claim can sound persuasive, but without depth, repetition quickly reveals its limits. Megyn Kelly, known for pressing for specifics, treated every vague answer like a thread worth tugging. The exchange never erupted into chaos. Instead, it unraveled steadily and precisely. Inconsistencies surfaced simply by being left in the open. Walz's ideas didn't falter because of hostility. They faltered because they were asked to remain consistent. Watching confidence try to outpace preparation created a tension that viewers immediately recognized. His answers grew longer but less focused, creating that familiar political moment where more words produce less clarity. It felt like watching someone attempt to solve a problem by adding complexity instead of sharpening the solution.
For Tim Walz on the disastrous performance he delivered, in particular when it comes to his self-described knuckle-headed behavior, which was just his latest in a series of lies. The reason he resorted to, "I'm a knucklehead," was he got confronted with his latest lie that's been unearthed. There's a long list of them. This one was that he was in China when the Tiananmen Square disaster unfolded.
Megyn Kelly's role was almost understated. She didn't embellish or exaggerate. She allowed the gaps in Walz's reasoning to become visible on their own. With each exchange, the contrast sharpened, her composure steady, his responses increasingly tangled. What might have been a forgettable discussion turned into a widely shared example of what happens when tone alone is expected to carry authority. Walz leaned on confidence in delivery, a tactic that works only if the details go unexamined. Kelly's approach centered on examining those details, calmly and repeatedly. The imbalance became clear. One side prepared for scrutiny, the other seemed prepared for agreement. As assumptions met careful questioning, confidence began to show strain. Kelly didn't need to call attention to contradictions. She simply allowed them to align naturally.
Late 2003, he deployed with his unit to Italy in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Operation Enduring Freedom is also known as the war in Afghanistan. He never went to Afghanistan. He never saw active combat, nor was he part of Enduring Freedom. Again, that name is used for the war in Afghanistan. He was in a support role in Italy. In the military, these words matter.
At that point, the segment began to resemble something closer to unintentional satire. Each attempt at clarification seemed to deepen the confusion, creating a cycle where every explanation required another to support it. It was like watching someone insist they had a roadmap while still sketching it out mid-journey. Megyn Kelly remained composed, never rushed, never celebratory, which made the inconsistencies stand out even more. Walz's assurance slowly shifted into defensiveness, and defensiveness rarely appears convincing when presented as certainty. Online viewers picked up on it instantly. The clip circulated not because of drama, but because of the precise moment where steady confidence faltered under basic scrutiny. The reactions weren't fueled by outrage. They reflected collective disbelief at how preventable the situation felt. Kelly kept redirecting the discussion toward specifics, avoiding detours into abstraction. Meanwhile, Walz appeared increasingly confined by his earlier statements, unable to retreat without contradiction and unable to advance without exposing another weak point.
You know whether you were in a place where hundreds of people are being massacred by their government when it happens. But he continues to try to say, like, oh, gee, I was just kind of confused. You know, that happened in May and I was there in August, but I guess I just imagined that I was there, whatever. So he got asked about that debate moment where he completely melted down on Wednesday in Pennsylvania, and here's how he handled it.
Look, I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong and China in 1989.
The most striking layer emerged when it seemed Walz believed the exchange was going smoothly. That unwavering confidence persisted even as his arguments visibly thinned, creating a powerful contrast between perception and reality. Kelly didn't need to interrupt. The disparity was evident. As the discussion continued, the trajectory became clear. Walz's framing had been stress-tested and found lacking. Kelly's approach stood out because it relied on composure rather than spectacle. The aftermath unfolded online, with commentators replaying key moments for both analysis and reflection. Walz's performance became a reference point, not because it was extreme, but because it illustrated what can happen when preparation is assumed rather than secured. Through it all, Kelly remained measured, demonstrating that sometimes the most effective strategy is allowing weak ideas to confront their own limitations.
You've got Tim Walz. Okay, Jen Psaki, she's a talking head, whatever. But Tim Walz was recently the vice presidential candidate on the Democratic ticket. Maybe you'd expect a little better, a little higher in terms of the rhetoric. You would be disappointed. Here is SOT 27.
You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying.
In the end, the impact resonated because nothing felt staged. The humor emerged naturally from the contrast between assurance and accuracy. There was no shouting match, no theatrical collapse. Just a steady examination that shifted momentum entirely. This wasn't about personality. It was about what happens when confident delivery meets detailed questioning. Walz entered expecting familiarity to smooth the path, and Kelly ensured that familiarity was replaced with accountability. Viewers reacted not with cruelty, but with recognition of the irony. The takeaway became difficult to ignore. Confidence isn't protection. Repetition isn't evidence. Charm doesn't replace preparation. Kelly left composed, while Walz found himself associated with a moment likely to be revisited long after the segment aired. What amplified the imbalance was how consistently it persisted. At no point did the dynamic fully reset. Without supportive framing, his messaging had to stand independently, and independence proved demanding.
And Tim Walz out there to be sort of man of the people. And the latest effort was him this weekend, like working on his car. He's just like a guy who works on the car and kicks the engine around.
Everything works on here, except one thing I'm still tinkering with, cruise control. So I'm gonna show you how to fix that. At the same time, we talk about creating an opportunity economy so that everybody can get the opportunity to thrive. To be able to work on this thing, you got a manual. It shows you exactly what to do to fix things.
Here's what made the exchange particularly revealing. Megyn Kelly understood that extended exposure can magnify overconfidence. She allowed each idea to unfold fully, knowing that clarity would either reinforce it or reveal its fragility. The moment evolved into a slow-building critique where the conclusion formed naturally. The more Walz attempted to reinforce his credibility, the more noticeable the structural gaps became. His responses drifted into abstraction, moving away from concrete accountability. In environments where clarity is expected, abstraction can feel evasive. Kelly maintained restraint, focusing on coherence rather than confrontation. Removed from a comfortable setting, Walz's messaging struggled under sustained examination. And that struggle was visible enough for viewers to sense it in real time.
News sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
Look at him. So chipper. Don't worry, there will be news. In other words, Trump will die. Something to look forward to. The absolute nerve, especially with a president who was subjected to at least 2 assassination attempts and just dodged death in recent history, to the great relief of every sane person in the nation. Now to be openly, talking about what a delicious day it's going to be.
The impact deepened as audiences recognized how much of Walz's authority depended on uninterrupted flow. Kelly slowed the pace intentionally, evaluating each claim individually. That deliberate pacing peeled back presentation and exposed structure. As Walz recalibrated on the spot, the adjustments felt reactive rather than strategic. Kelly never cornered him aggressively, yet his own overextensions created constraints. As clips circulated, the moment took on broader meaning, reflecting frustration with arguments built more on tone than detail. Viewers responded not out of hostility, but because the scenario felt familiar, the experience of watching certainty falter when asked for specifics. By the conclusion, the lesson stood clear. Effective questioning doesn't require volume, and confidence without preparation can quickly become vulnerability. The exchange resonated because it wasn't forced or overstated. It unfolded naturally, allowing contrast to carry the narrative and letting quiet scrutiny deliver the final impact. And this brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.